Hey Summoners, and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathan Ng, and today I'll be updating you guys on all the news that's been going on in the past week. We've got some good stuff to talk about, like the LCS lock-in, confirmed visual updates, new skin lines, and more, so make sure you stick around to the end so you don't miss out on a thing. Let's start off by talking about what we know about champion updates in 2021. A few weeks ago, Riot released a poll asking players to tell us what champion they wanted to see updated next. The winner of the poll was UDYR, which means that he's the next champion to get a total makeover in 2021. Riot has a pretty good track record for the VGUs, releasing awesome updates like Fiddlesticks, Volibear, Scion, and Urgot. So I'm really excited to see what they're planning for UDYR. Before we talk about the direction of the UDYR update, our question of the day is, what champion do you want to see updated next? I was pretty bummed out about Nocturne losing the poll, but hopefully he'll come around as an option in the next one. Okay, so back to the UDYR update. Developers of the update said that they wanted to try to embrace the shaman side of the UDYR a bit more. He has a lot of potential to fulfill a unique character type in League, and right now UDYR is just suffering from being one of the most ancient champions in the game. The devs also mentioned that they plan on keeping UDYR's melee stance style of gameplay, so players shouldn't have to worry about a new shaman healer or like something crazy. Like the previous VGUs, we expect to see UDYR as a new and improved melee fighter. Speaking of VGUs, there have been a lot of discussions about them in the community. Riot has already confirmed that they'll only work on one major update this year due to complications from COVID. It takes a lot of work to do a successful rework, and UDYR is a champion that has a bunch of different stances and effects. Realistically, the UDYR rework was already going to take a long time, and working from home doesn't make anything easier. The workflow is slowed down, and people are dealing with quarantine in different ways. I'd rather have Riot be open about slowing down some of their updates instead of saying that there's a maybe. If Riot tried to tackle 2 major updates this year, I'm positive that at least one of them would fall flat compared to the other past reworks. People still say that updates like the Warwick rework are still some of the best reworks in the game, and Riot works hard to constantly live up to those expectations. Let's cut them a bit of a slack this year, and hopefully things will be easier next year. By the way, if you ever thought about getting a ProGuides subscription, now is the time. From now until the 20th, you can use the discount code PG15 to get 15% off your next subscription. All you need to do is head over to ProGuides.com and enter the code. Don't miss out on this awesome opportunity. Now, let's get back into the video. Moving away from major updates, Riot also made some comments about smaller champion updates. The most recent example of these are updates to Kayle, Morgana, and Ezreal. They got a small adjustment to their kits, but the main focus was to their visuals and voiceovers. In a Reddit comment, Riot Reeves said that it's something that the team talks about a lot, but it isn't something that's very achievable right now. If Riot wanted to do a small visual update, they would have to go and update all of the skins and effects on the champion, which is a lot of work, and that could be spent doing something else. For example, to do a smaller update, Riot would need to cut out the VGU or a new champion release, which isn't something worth it in the long run. Luckily, there's a lot of hope for the cast of older champions in the future. As Riot builds more relationships outside of the company, it'll become a lot easier to outsource some things that just don't require a massive team of gameplay designers like visual updates. Basically, we probably won't see a small visual update soon, but it's still talked about at Riot. Now that we've talked about some champion updates, we've got some news about some exciting skin lines coming in 2021. Like the VGU poll, Riot posted a poll asking for players to choose one of the skin lines coming this year, with the choices being Crime City Nightmare, Debonair 2.0, and Monster Tamers. While Monster Tamers didn't do so well, Crime City Nightmare won the global poll, with Debonair in second place. However, Debonair actually beat Crime City over in China, so Riot decided that they'll be doing both skin lines this year, with Crime City coming out first. We should expect to see some skins between July and September of this year. We'll get another update on the progress as we get closer to the middle of the year. Unlike the UDYR update, we didn't get too many hints about the skins and what champions will be getting them. We saw some really nice concept arts for few champions, but Riot said that it doesn't confirm nor deny what champions will be getting the skins. Some developers try to drop hints in their comments about Crime City, but who knows if they're just messing with us. If you want to stay up to date with these skins and any other news content, make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications. As soon as we hear about something, we'll make sure to let you guys know. Moving away from champions and cosmetics, Riot recently released a dev blog talking about the future of the League client. This isn't the first time that we're hearing about the client, and it's kind of crazy how many things seem to go wrong. Forced dodges, blank screens, and a mess of friends lists are just a few of the issues that players are running into, and the worst part is that Riot knows about all of this. They aren't pretending like they don't see the issues, it's just very difficult to make a fully functioning client. So we know that there are issues, but let's talk about the positives. The client was a lot less worse than last year, and right now we just have a faster startup time, among 175 other bug fixes. This post highlighted some of the future changes to the client, so let's go over what's in store for 2021. To start things off, Riot is changing favorites, missions, and emotes from the champ select. These features are pretty underused, and it makes sense for Riot to try to rework them into something more efficient. Since champ select is such an important part of the client experience, Riot really needs to make sure that nothing really goes wrong. They've already fixed some issues with emotes, and will hopefully get some fixes to champion favorites and the missions tab. As for the future, Riot wrote about a bunch of issues that they're planning to address in the social panel. Some of these issues are connection problems, folder issues, chat stuttering, and friend requests not functioning properly. The social tab is another important part of the League client, so hopefully we'll be getting these fixes sooner rather than later. The last part of the dev blog highlights awareness of stability issues in the client. Riot is focusing on 2 areas to make the client better: client crashes and JavaScript errors. Client crashes are exactly what they sound like, and JavaScript errors usually just end up blowing up the client. To work on these 2 areas, Riot is focusing on fixing the crashes, along with lowering memory leaks and cleaning up the code. There's a lot of back-end work that goes into the client, and while everyone wants it to be perfect, it'll take some work before we can have a totally smooth client. Let's hope for the best in 2021, and maybe I'll accidentally stop missing my bans because of client lag. But enough about the client, let's go ahead and talk about the balance of the game for a bit. Riot posted their upcoming jungle changes for patch 11.4, and after the nerfs to a lot of powerful junglers in patch 11.3, we're expecting to see an impact to the role drop quite a bit. The current 11.4 jungle changes will be the nerf to Razorbeak, Gromp, and Krugs, lowering their gold and experience values while buffing some of their HP values. The goal here is to give junglers less resources so they aren't 2 levels above your solo laners, and that's a pretty good goal. It's true that junglers have a lot of power right now, but what do you guys think? Is Riot approaching this correctly? A major issue with jungling is the experience and gold that you get from farming minions. When jungle camps gets nerfed, junglers usually end up taxing players more so they could go ahead and make up for their lost resources. Or they'll avoid farming jungles altogether and play somebody like Elise who can just instantly and constantly gank somebody in lane without being super farmed up. We'll just need to wait till the full list of changes are released, but expect to see a big power shift in the jungle. If you're worried about carrying games after your main role is nerfed, head over to ProGuides.com and talk to one of our coaches. Our high elo staff can help you with whatever goal you have, or help you come up with a totally new one. Feel free to stop by and chat with the coach before you book a session. We promise that you won't regret it. Moving away from the actual game, the LCS Lock-In tournament just wrapped up, and the spring split has started. Without spoiling the results, the LCS Lock-In tournament had some very solid viewership. This is a great way to introduce the LCS season. I have a feeling that we'll see this tournament again next year along with some new improvements. For the pros, the tournament gave teams a lot of extra games to practice for the real season. It's really important for players to get as much official practice as possible. The lock-in tournament might not give teams a massive reward, but teams can play in a serious setting with lower stakes. This gives players the opportunity to practice playing together, allowing them to build their synergy and try out new strategies without stressing about their standings. Speaking of pros, Faker did an interview with Horizon Esports and talked about some interesting stuff. He gave some insight on T1's 10-man roster, but I want to talk about his opinion on pros and how age affects their gameplay. Like anything that's competitive, League requires you to stay sharp in order to stay on a team. You can't join a team like T1, G2, or TSM and expect to stay there as a mediocre player. Organizations are constantly looking for talented players to join them, and most of the team's seniority doesn't really mean anything when you're playing a competitive game. This means that players usually retire once they start underperforming, which gives older players a negative stigma. Whenever players hear about older players, the first thing they think about is retirement. Like most of his other opinions, Faker's input on age differences in the league is pretty amazing. In his interview, he said, "I personally believe the average age of league players will go up in the future." He followed this up with, "The role that I can play in order to break this prejudice as a professional gamer is to win more tournaments." He's pretty much saying that the only way to prove that older players can be good is to be good. Pretty easy, right? Coming from Faker, it's hard to imagine a day when Faker will retire. And even though he isn't number 1 at everything, he's still a very solid and strong player. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter when you start playing League professionally, and it will always be hard to stay at the top of something that's so competitive. On the outside, it looks like players get worse as they get older, but really, they're just getting worse. If Faker stays around for a couple more years, he's concrete proof that age does not mean anything in the League Pro scene. And that's all we have for you guys this time. Thank you so much for tuning in to our weekly recap, and keep an eye out for our next one. We're always uploading videos about news, patches, and so much more, so make sure you subscribe if you're interested. And don't forget about answering our question of the day in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.